will start, and also developing leadership skills in all of our employees across all levels. So they're my favourite areas to work in. And I'm also co-presenter of Learning Now TV, which is really fun.
Great.
Thank you.
So on my screen, we've got top to bottom. We've got Jon next. So let's go from top to bottom. So Jon, tell us a little about you.
Hi everybody, I'm Jon Kennard. I'm editor of training journal TJ. I take care mostly of the content online. We have Debbie Carter, who's editor-in-chief at TJ. She takes care of the magazine. And Jo Cook, hello Jo, I believe she's on this webinar as well as an attendee for once, how strange, who as deputy editor. She takes care of our webinar program and various other bits as well. So we're an L&D community. We're a community for L&D professionals, executive leadership consultants, coaches, training managers, CLOs, everyone like that. I've been working in L&D publishing for about 10 years. For TJ, coming up to 2 years. And we publish written content. We run a podcast series, as well as a lot of other audio interviews, videos. We're very active on social media. And that's me.
Great, thanks, Jon. And finally, Andrew.
Hi, I'm Andrew Jacobs. I'm Learning and Development Transformation Lead at HMRC. So everybody wants me to do my job well, but not too well. Prior to this, I worked in local government. I was in local councils for 8 years. Before that, I've worked in retail banking, fire service, all in learning and development roles. Things that float my boat at the moment are doing more for less, which you probably don't want to hear, and how to get the most bang for my buck. Great.
Well, thank you very much, all of you, for joining today. And as you can see, very experienced panel who, we've got obviously two of you are practitioners, but it's interesting to have Jon in the mix too, because he's kind of always looking out for decent content himself. So this is what we're going to do over the next 45-50 minutes. We're going to just look at the current challenges that our panel has in what they are doing now. So just to give us a flavour of what they're working on. And then we're going to look at what information is useful. And then we are going to look at the best way to get it to our audience. So what we're going to do is after each section, we'll just have a pause for questions, okay? So I'm just going to facilitate this, and our panel is just going to share their thinking. Please do put questions in the chat as we go. So before we do anything else, this is a quick one for everyone on the webinar. Just if you could quickly put in the chat what you think would make this a successful webinar for you. Now, the reason we're asking this is purely because everyone here, myself and the panel, are just interested in providing something that is useful. And if we get a quick sense of that now from you, then we can really make sure that we try and do that. So what would make this a successful webinar for you? Let's see, just if you could put that in the chat, that'd be great. There we go. This is James. Practical HR realities versus the buzzwords. Two-way engagement. This is Rachel. Which channels are best? I think we can come to that. Hype. That's lots of buzz and hype. What really matters? What can really help you? Ideas of content will be relevant and interesting. And how to connect better with you. I mean, these are all really, really good areas, actually. So hopefully we can, no pressure panel. Now we've asked the question. Now we can see what everyone's they would like to get. So that's brilliant. Okay, so what we'll do is let's just kick off with, and thanks everyone for pitching in there. What we'll do is we'll kick off with the challenges. Now, I'm also going to attempt to make a note of these as we go. So bear with me. If this works, then great. And if it doesn't, I might just do something else. So in terms of your current challenges, Andrew, you kind of alluded to some of those just a minute ago in your introduction. So what are you facing in your role at the moment?
The biggest one, as you can imagine, is Brexit, that horrible B word. There's a lot of work being undertaken around that. And to do that, we have to be really agile in terms of our learning design. So what that means is skinning up our learning teams very quickly is very hard. We're doing that against a backdrop of diminishing budgets, as pretty much all the public sector. Even in the budget yesterday, we were told about how much money we're going to have, and it's going to be less than this year, or it will be less in the future rather. Another one is the scale. We've got 68,500 staff in the organisation, split across all parts of the UK. So being able to get something to everybody is difficult, and also another challenge that sits underneath a lot of this stuff is, from a vendor perspective, is an appreciation that we're using a non-course based approach for a lot of our learning activity, and it's how suppliers are able to support that.
Okay, that's great. So Kim, what are your challenges currently?
For my organisation, it's a rather creative and varied organisation, so employee engagement can be a challenge. So figuring out how best to connect with our people to gain their buy-in, to gain and retain their attention, and to really help them feel more engaged with what we do. I'd say leadership skills, but in particular those of our senior leaders, they can believe that they might not need any support or any further development, but we always find anyone can continue to work on their leadership skills in any way. So that's a challenge, and that in turn we hope will increase our people's trust and their engagement with our senior leadership. And finally, onboarding in general, how best to enable new people to truly understand what it is that we do without overwhelming them. So getting the right information to them at the right time.
Great. And John.
Hello. So my challenges, I guess, are a little bit different to everyone else's, because I'm coming at it from a completely different angle. But nevertheless, I do have challenges. These being mostly, I think, finding unique angles on well-worn subjects, because I do get a lot of pitches for content which take on subjects which we've covered fairly extensively. And so the challenge is about bringing something new to the table around a certain subject, be it coaching, leadership development. At the moment, AI is something that I'm hearing a lot, and I'm getting a lot of pitches about. Another one, this is kind of a perennial thing, and I don't really have an answer, but presenting case studies, because I think we'll come on to this later. I know that case studies is something that people find very useful, but the challenge that I have is trying to present case studies in a non-promotional way that gives value to our audience and isn't just kind of a product pitch, which leads me on to the third point, which is generally around making the content valuable as possible, making it practical, making it relatable. It's great having kind of big picture thinking and talking about future issues in L&D, but something that relates it to the day-to-day of what it's like being an L&D manager, training manager. So yeah, those are my challenges.
Great. So have we got any, I can't spell, let's That's great. So around those questions, around those challenges, is there anything else anyone would like to expand on? I know James was asking about what a cool resources approach was, and Andrew's kind of shared that. Is there anything else just on the challenges that we've just heard there that anyone would like to pick up on? If not, we can get straight into the meat and drink of it in terms of what you'd like to see and how you'd like to get it. So, okay. So I think that's just interesting. The reason I've asked that is because, you know, in the work that I do, that this idea of making, you know, really understanding what the audience, you know, your customers or prospects, your readers are actually wanting to find out about is just critically important. It's no good in just, you know, putting stuff out there that's not related to that. So I think it's really worth framing what is going on for people. So
there's a question in there from James. Are expectations of communications channels changing? That's interesting. Are we talking about the communication of the marketing material, or are you talking about communication of the learning? If it's communication of the learning activity, then absolutely. You know, our expectation is not face-to-face anymore. You know, that's what I mean by a non-course based approach. You know, face-to-face is you know, not a default option. It's something that we will use. What we're being challenged by is digital fluency, which I think is a stage on from literacy. Is the, you know, how fluent are people using different technologies? What we're also trying to work through is a very complicated and complex IT system. As you can imagine, in HMRC, everything is locked down, and that makes life a bit difficult.
Great. Okay, so that's great, Andrew. Should we move on? I think it probably looks like we can. So information, what information is useful? So I think this is quite a broad question, but it's coming back to some of the things that you've started to talk about. So, you know, when you're getting stuff from vendors, I'll start with you, Andrew. I mean, you can look at what's useful. You can also kind of share what isn't useful, because I think that's also going to be quite illuminating. So just to have a reflect on what is and isn't useful for you.
I really frustrated a few people a couple of weeks ago. I was at a vendor's event, and I explained that I have a filter on my email. And my email, if you send an email to me and it has the word unsubscribe or subscribe in it, it goes automatically into a separate junk folder, which I then review at the end of the day and delete pretty much everything that's in there. Because the vast majority of stuff I get is of no use to me whatsoever. It's like I feel like I'm a pond and you're fishing me. You know, I throw some of this, I throw some of that, I throw some of this, and see what I want to bite. And unfortunately, I can't work like that. I work in the public sector. We have a procurement process. We have to follow the procurement rules. I mean, you know, a lead-in for a significant project could be 2 years potentially on something big. So I'm not going to be buying things just off the cuff. It doesn't work that way. So just flinging emails at me and phone calls is just horrendous. The stuff that's more useful for me is selling me the stuff that I want. So not try to sell me stuff that sits outside. You know, don't tell me what I need. I probably know what I need. What I have to do is to sell that internally, and I need to sell it to my managers in my business. So if I've already scoped out this is what I need, I have an agency to then go back and say, this is the product we're going to use. If you try and sell me other stuff on top of it, I won't have that agency. And that makes it very difficult for me to do my job.
And can I just ask, what would be, you know, how would we know what you need at the moment? from the outside?
Use these. Listen, if I'm telling you this, it's for a reason. You know, we've scoped it out. We know what we're doing. You know, I'm lucky to be part of a team of very professional, very good L&D people who know what good looks like and know what we need for our business. You know, and part of our role is to scope and see who's doing what where and see what products are available. You know, we tap into this stuff to see what's going on. So yeah, if you have something new, fabulous. But chances are us selling it into the business is going to be really difficult. So we've done a lot of that work already. So listen to what we're saying.
Yeah. Some great, really, really interesting. So Kim, what would you say? You know, not only what is useful to you, but you can also, you know, feel free to talk about what isn't useful as well, because I think that can help get a
so it sounds like Andrew prefers to connect with vendors who he chooses or his team chooses to engage with, right? And then ideally they need to listen to you know, the scope of the work and the needs of the business, and only provide that. I'm similar in the sense that what isn't useful is the spamming and the cold calling. And I think a lot of people agree with that and know that that doesn't often work. But of course, something that really stands out, say in an email, something that is really visual and grabs my attention, I'm then more likely to at least have a look. And I guess what I'm looking for, personally, I like to see an element of culture and you know, personality and kind of that vendor company's philosophies perhaps around how they approach what they do and how they partner with corporations or learning professionals. So I want to get a sense of you know, if someone's going to be easy and quite exciting to work with. So that really appeals to me. And I guess linked to that, you know, if a company has a blog or any sort of thought leadership that they can share, that appeals to me, because then I feel like I can have a conversation and learn from them as well. And I guess likewise, I noticed a moment ago, I think Eva said that case studies are a challenge. Well, yeah, seeing some examples of previous work in some sort of case study format, but where the impact is really obvious and measurable, that's really helpful as well.
Great. Now, it's great questions. So I'll just ask the panel, I know that everyone else is, you know, you're keeping an eye on what people are asking, and we'll come back to that preferred channel question as well, because that's been posed a couple of times. So panel, you're doing a great job answering in chat, so thank you, while I'm trying to type here. John, what's your take on this?
Well, this is the question where I've got to make sure that I get the slides off you at the end, Martin, because this is all gold for someone who's in L&D marketing and publishing. I mean, I've sort of mentioned it a bit before, but practical takeaways, I guess the old ROI question is, I'm sure it's something that people are bored of hearing, but it's still very, very important, and how you justify this, and how you kind of make your case for any L&D activities to the rest of the business, and that is what we have to make sure that when we publish articles that we kind of cover these things and make them as useful and practical as possible. But this is the one question, or this is the one section of this webinar where I feel like I'm more on the audience side rather than I can offer too much as a panelist, really. But I do, for the next question about channels, I do have fresh research from our commercial survey, which we ran recently, which was questioning a large section of our clients, past, present, and possibly future, about what channels work for them. So I can add quite a lot there, but this one not so much.
Go on then. I mean, let's carry on with the channels then, if that's
yeah.
You start with that. Yeah.
Okay, sure. So the things that the question was in our survey: which publications, websites, events, or other activity have been most successful for you, and why? Social media has come through very strongly, Twitter and LinkedIn particularly. Project LinkedIn provides proper leads, training journal for content and lead generation. Facebook and Instagram, interesting. Couple of events getting name checked, CIPD, learning technologies, the coaching conversation. Social media for one, this is all anonymized, but I can give you some of the quotes. Social media is the best way of promotion for my services and building my network. Word of mouth has been our most successful area. We have to be sales orientated, but are investing much more in our digital marketing channels. Scrolling down a little bit further, someone says LinkedIn and Twitter for ease of use and ease of tracking analytics, which is interesting. And I think analytics is certainly something which is going to come into play a whole lot more. And this is something where if we're talking about channels, the challenge for us, I think, is the way that the TJ community is kind of diversifying quite a lot. So we're not just about our number of site members or email subscribers or anything like that. We've now got a significant audience on LinkedIn. We've got a significant audience on Twitter, but also through SoundCloud, because we're putting quite a lot of time into our audio. So I think the challenge for me, which is also a channels question as well, is how we kind of create the best Venn diagram we can of where all these people are sitting and how they engage with TJ, because it is evolving and changing the way that people interact with our content and interact with the things we publish.
So Andrew, I think that's an interesting point, John, about obviously there's a whole load of different ways to connect with someone like you. So what is it? Do we just hit you with everything everywhere, or what? You don't like email that's badly done, so what do we do?
I get 2 or 3 LinkedIn requests every day from people, but it says quite clearly on my LinkedIn profile, don't connect with me unless you tell me why you want to connect. And if you just send me a LinkedIn request, I'm just going to ignore it, because I get so many. So tell me why you want to connect with me. And that's really important. I tend to use LinkedIn less, just purely because I don't necessarily like the structure of it. I'm interested in the analytics piece, because that's interesting. How many people are reading stories and stuff that's been posted? I think that there's something around that perhaps. But if you're going to connect with me, I live in Twitter. That's my space to go to, and at conferences and events, and come and talk to me. But talk to me as you. Don't talk to me as your business. Because I need a personal connection before I can. It suits me to have a personal connection with somebody rather than the business connection in the first instance. Okay,
so we talked about this previously. If we're on one of those Twitter chats, for example, and you're going to be you could be your company name, or you could be your name, maybe at your company. It's going to be far more likely you're going to take note of someone, who is a person with a real name, rather than a brand name. Absolutely, yeah. Again, the numbers of tweets I get, and from companies, just who follow me and then unfollow me and then follow me and then unfollow me and then follow me because they're desperate for me to follow them. I don't work like that. And that kind of stuff, it gets annoying, and actually it works against your brand. So don't do it. Okay, so I know we've sort of jumped forward a little bit here, but let's carry on with this. So Kim, in terms of the channels that you're in, or you've talked about email is fine. If it's the right thing, it's eye-catching. You've talked about blog posts. Where else would you like to hear?
I think the best connections I've ever made are definitely in person at conferences and other events, like Andrew's mentioned. Obviously, that's not easy for everyone. I'm looking for that authenticity. So, email is not necessarily fine, but some of them just stand out more than others. It's the rounds and realms of information. It's the lack of a clear call to action, or a lack of the point of the message, i.e. why they're getting in touch. And then the phone calls, that often take place immediately afterwards. That's really off-putting, especially when that person is reading from a script. So I appreciate, here I am talking about things that aren't useful, but I mean, a lot of the channels that have already been mentioned, or the ways of receiving content, I totally agree with. So for me, yeah, blogs, newsletters, just Google searches. I often, if my manager asks me to find a new solution or company to work with, I'll use my network, like Twitter, like Andrew does. I'll ask friends and contacts, but then I'll also do some Googling myself as well.
Okay, so I'm just jumping around on the slides because we've slightly gone into the third area. Can I just kind of go back slightly into this, what information is useful? Because I'd like to tease this out a little bit more, because we talked about case studies. And Kim, you were talking a bit about the philosophy of the business, and how people partner. So, there are things like that, there's a whole gamut of stuff, like research, white papers, articles, first person stories, the case study. What is it out of all of that you find useful? Or, is there a certain point at which you need certain bits of information in certain formats? But what sort, out of all of those types of content, types of information, what would be useful to you? Andrew?
Yeah.
Sorry. Go on, Kim, you go.
I was just going to mention, I'd want to get a sense of that company's values to ensure that appeals to us, and that there's a similarity as to how we operate or how we behave or things that we believe in. And then in terms of other information, I guess speak to some. They might not know my needs, right, or my issues, my challenges, my problems, but there are some typical ones. So speak to them and make it explicit, or at least allude to how you might solve them.
Okay. So talk to your challenges and how.
And I appreciate it's guesswork at that stage, right? This is before a vendor has had a conversation with somebody in an organisation. They're guessing what might those challenges be.
Okay, so you're fairly agnostic about whether it's it might be research that kind of piques your interest. If it's around the challenge, so if it's on board, if it's recruitment related or onboarding related, if that's what you're thinking about, then you're quite open to what form that might take. It's actually just understanding what the challenge is that you're seeking answers on. Yeah. Okay, that's great. So Andrew, how about you? What are your thoughts on that?
I like case studies, but it's not writing them as a hero's journey every time, and that's really important.
So
if you don't know the hero's, if you don't know the hero's journey, have a quick Wikipedia look for it. I'll put the link in the. Let me find the link. I've got it here somewhere. I'll put the link in the chat. What the hero's journey says is that think of Star Wars. That's the hero's journey. Person doesn't know something, comes across enlightenment, struggles, goes down, and then fights back with external intervention. And pretty much every case study is the same. We had a problem. We didn't know what to do. We went and looked at this thing. We tried this. This didn't work, but then this worked, and everything was then perfect. And I don't necessarily need to see everything that's perfect all the time. I want to know the stuff that's wrong. And I want to know the case studies where the stuff's still not working, because to me that's much more interesting. Where the problems are and the things that aren't working. Why didn't that learning management system land? What was the issues with it? It isn't always culture. A lot of it can be down to how the thing's been managed in the first place. So I like interesting case studies. What I also do is that I use Feedly as the RSS reader. And I've got links to about 400 different sites, and I'll scan through that every day, 15-20 minutes in the morning, and I'll scan through that and see what's there. and that's where I pick out the interesting stuff. That's where the more interesting stuff comes. That's where it piques my interest. What's interesting is the most of the stuff I see doesn't come from L&D. It comes from elsewhere.
Okay.
I mean, the number of podcasts I listen to that aren't learning and development related, where I get an idea from, is really interesting.
So I don't want everyone to leave the webinar today in a deep sort of depression at the fact that the audience is looking elsewhere. So what does that so what might the lesson there be, actually? Because clearly we all need to look outside of our category to understand what's relating to what we do and how. Yeah. So what might that look like for the vendor community?
So if you're selling to me, then what's my business? Yeah, my business is HMRC. So what's that? So our aim and our purpose is, we are the tax collection organisation for the UK. Our job is to increase yield. So our purpose is about how we can do that. Now, what you need to be doing if you're selling to me is to understand the nature of my business and what my purpose is. So you need to be able to talk to me about things that are happening elsewhere that might relate to how you draw that or how we can improve that yield. What some of the problems might be in us getting that yield. So produce things or come to me with things that are relevant to the nature of my business. Don't just come to me and go, we did this thing that was really interesting.
Okay. So is there a role there? I mean, this is a bit of a leading question, but, is there a role there just to be pulling in the equivalent of your 400 feeds and just saying, there's some interesting stuff here this week that, you may not have seen, but it might be of use to you, knowing who you are?
It needs to be more than that, because anybody can just create a newsletter and email a newsletter out and go, isn't this interesting? What's more interesting is to take in 3, 4, 5 different things, put them together and say, this is something you might be interested in. So there was this podcast that talked about this. There was this TED video that came out about this. There was this news story. These 3 things together combined to make this. Is this something you've been thinking about? Have you thought about it from that approach? It's doing that first step of my thinking, and trying to work on my thinking to save me having to bricolage all of these things together. That's where you're going to engage with me.
Okay. So Kim, can I just come back to you quickly? Has anyone ever asked you what you like, what would be useful to you? And, just picking up on what Andrew said, ask those questions. Like, actually, you probably get loads of stuff sent to you. This is what we do, but we'd really like to be useful to you. How could we be useful to you?
Yeah, I cannot recall. I cannot think of an example recently where a company's approached me either over the phone or over email or via LinkedIn and asked questions or asked for insight into either my business or what I do in my role and our passions and challenges and things like that. It is more often than not just about information around what that company does and how they think they might be able to help us.
Okay. So there is a tension here around selling and actually producing content that is of value over time. Yeah. And I think that we are, today we're talking about the stuff that's valuable over time. I think that's really interesting. So John, I've got one more question on this for you, which is, so what is the most successful type of content on Training Journal then? Bearing in mind it is read by, you're wincing at my question, but have you got any sense of the sort of stuff that people really do like? Or have I put you on?
Okay, so not to deflect it back at you straight away, but what are we determining is successful? I mean, we've got kind of first generation vanity metrics like reads, etc., etc. A lot of the content that's very popular through analytics is content that's been popular for a long time. So the way that these things surface, right, is they get really popular and then they stay up there. They stay in, the spiders keep finding them, you know. So a lot of our most popular pieces of content are long form blogs. But some of them, I think our most popular article on TJ to date is called The Power of Recognition, which I think is very interesting. Our audio is increasing, I think 200% in the last 6 months in terms of listens. But again, these aren't very deep metrics we're talking about. These are just the kind of metrics you would have used 4 or 5 years ago. Now we're looking at maybe comments, shares, and sort of better interaction. To move away kind of from analytics, can I just go back to something that Andrew was saying about, you know, focusing on the nature of your own business? And I think I get a lot of press releases from PR companies on behalf of various clients, and the ones that I immediately ignore, well, I scan all of them, but the ones that I spend less time with are ones where there's clearly been some very superficial mail merge. They may not even have my name in there. They certainly aren't tailoring it to the person they're sending it to. And I think this is probably a problem for a lot of businesses. And I know that PR companies are probably quite time poor. Vendors are probably quite time poor. We're all quite time poor. But I think it really, really pays to study the people that you're sending these press releases to, and understanding what their problems are, what their business is focused on, and not just sending something out that's generic. Because not only is it, I think it's sloppy, but also you're going to put yourself at the bottom of the pile, because it really shows when someone's taken the care and the time to look at the business they're sending the email to, or pitching an idea to, an article to, and they know what ticks your boxes, what's going to fire you up, what's going to make you look at this, you know. So that little personal touch speaks to authenticity, it speaks to storytelling, which I know has been a bit of a buzzword for the last few years, but it's understandable. But going back to your question about the most popular content, so it tends to be, if we're talking about, are we talking about the content of it, the structure of it, the length of it? What are you interested in? And I'll see what I can do.
No, it was just, you know, you can define it however you like. I'm just like, you know, I'm just getting a sense of, you know, if I was to, I'm coming back to the questions, you know, this sense of what would be useful in this webinar, and that idea of going away thinking, actually, you know, that sort of content seems to work well for the media. You know, it is quite interesting, because we have things like what is now called learning news, and there are lots of press releases every day put on that. And it strikes me that what you've just said about press releases would mean that they're probably not that interesting a lot of the time. So it's just, I was just thinking, and I think you've given us some insights there actually about the sorts of things that are useful and the way that you're going about it. I mean, if there's all I'm getting at is there anything in particular, you know, certain kind of topics, or, you know, you said blog posts, longer form blog posts can be quite popular, and audio is growing in demand. I think that's quite interesting as well. So
yeah, audio is growing faster than video, interestingly, but that could be that I've sort of chosen to nurture that community a bit more than video, although video is going to be more of a focus for us in 2019, certainly. Yeah. I don't know, it's one of these things where I'm not really sure how much credence to put in it, or whether it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy on the part of Facebook, where they say, oh, 80% of our content in stream is going to be video by 2020 or whatever, or they're kind of driving towards that. But I know that, for example, our strategy with Facebook is that they prioritize video over written posts. So we're kind of doing a bit more with video, especially live stream video as well. Yeah, sorry, just reading Joe's question, comment there. Yeah, so longer form blog posts historically have been really popular. I mean, the things that came out of our member survey last year, the popular topics that people wanted to hear about, the 3 things were coaching, leadership, and neuroscience were the big things. So they're topics that we've looked at this year. We're going to do the same thing again leading up to Christmas to build on the survey results from last year. Some of the same questions, tweaking some of them slightly, but it'll be interesting to see whether those topics are perennially going to be popular. I would assume that things like leadership and coaching will be, and I think neuroscience will stay quite popular, but I think the understanding of it will change quite a lot, personally. But yeah, coaching, leadership and neuroscience were the three big things for this year that's coming to an end.
That's great. Now, let's are there any other questions over what information is useful? I know that you've all been keeping an eye on the chat, and thank you everyone for sharing questions. So we've got, have we answered, Natalie, have we answered your question? You're talking about the topics, and what stands out and what makes the content interesting. So forgive me if I am distilling this overly, but it strikes me that the hard work here is understanding what you guys actually are working on and what your organisation is all about. And therein lies the gold, but it's also quite hard to do. So I think, it's about being very proactive about understanding what you're all working on and the context in which you're working. I mean, unless there's anything else there, panel, I don't know if we've missed anything in terms of, what stands out. It seems to me like it's in the context of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, and it's a catch-22, isn't it? It's really, as I said earlier, it's hard for vendors to guess what we might possibly be working on, or what topics we might be interested in. But as Andrew said, go to our websites, explore what our company's all about, look at our profiles on LinkedIn and Twitter, and you'll see some insight, as to what our experience is and what we're interested in. And then, of course, the topics such as coaching, leadership, neuroscience, onboarding, anything any company might need to invest time, effort and energy in could be an area that might spark that conversation.
Yeah. Andrew, would you add anything there?
No, not at all. It is. I understand the dilemma. You want to sell your thing to us, and it feels difficult to talk about us as opposed to your thing. But it needs to be positioned that way.
Yeah, and I think that's what it comes down to in terms of with a sea of content that we are all kind of swimming in. It's the business pressure to sell is there, obviously, but the reality is that there are ways that we can use content now to really kind of appeal to you guys in a useful way. And I think that's the challenge here, isn't it? It is a tension, but it's an investment, and that's what we're talking about here.
At Christmas last year, we were saying about my email filter. Christmas last year, I managed to pick up between 60 and 80 emails a day from people who were sending me stuff going, oh, it's Christmas and look what's the tree, and opening our advent calendar. And, it's really, it's everybody's doing it. You're just making more noise. And getting Halloween themed ones now, for example, and I'm no doubt people are crafting wonderful fireworks emails next week, because that's what you do. I get that, but your original idea isn't original if I'm getting 20 emails a day like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. There is a question quickly.
Joe Cook. I've just seen Joe's comment.
What about events? Now, what do you turn up to events? Do you like attending events from vendors? If so, what would they be?
Yeah, I have done. If you want us to call out names, I recently attended a Fosway event because I'm interested in their data and their research, and other vendors were involved, and it was interesting. I think it was positioned, it was framed well. I didn't necessarily walk away with any follow up, any planned follow up, but Yeah, I'm open to those kind of events. I think it does depend how they're positioned and what I might get from it.
Okay. So it's basically back to that, what you're working on, your challenges. If that's
my time, it
might just hit the right note at the right time.
Oh, and send me a sparkly invitation, actually. I know Andrew might not agree, but for example, the Good Practice crowd send the most fantastic invitations through the post, which is a little, more traditional than some, and it puts a smile on my face. I might not be able to go, but it's memorable.
I've just put in the chat. James said no chocolate Santas for me. People forget this. I work in the public sector. I work for HMRC. I have to declare anything and everything that anybody wants to give me, whether that be a mobile phone stand, a jacket potato. I once declared a £2.90 jacket potato because a supplier bought me my lunch, because I have to do that stuff. So don't send me anything, because guess what? It's just going to be so much hassle for me to have to record it. It absolutely throws it out. And sorry, James, Christmas potatoes, it wouldn't work for me, I'm afraid. I mean, you could try it elsewhere, it wouldn't work for me. In terms of vendor events, I will go to vendor events where the story that's being told relates to the story that I'm trying to work to. I'm not brand specific. I'll go anywhere where I think there's something of value, but it has to relate specifically to what I'm doing. I'm going to one in a few weeks' time. It's all about 70-20-10, because guess what? 70-20-10 is a core tenet of the approach that we're taking in HMRC. So that's why I'm going to it. No other reason. It's not about the product. It's not about the service that the organisation applies. What I want to do is to understand their view of 70-20-10. So it has to be related to the activity that I'm interested in.
Yeah, great. So I think, unless you've got any more questions about that, I know we sort of getting towards the end here. Now, the best way to get it to them, that's a bit rude, isn't it? So we're talking about we started talking about this. Can I ask a question, actually, that's, if it was regular, so are there regular ways in which you like to, how often do you like to be communicated to with? Can I just ask that? That'd be my first thing, because email, for example, you'll be on lists, and Andrew, you're getting those 80 over Christmas. They're going into your unsubscribe. Is that the way to do it? Frequency, channel. We talked about some of the channels, but what about frequency?
Frequency is an interesting one, because month merges into month, and what I think is interesting is that one person's new idea 1 month is something that I saw 2 months ago or 3 months ago. So the frequency one is interesting, because to me it's driven by what I am engaging with and my cadence, for want of another word, the pace that I'm working at, and that's interesting. I think what's difficult is, because it's been done at scale, and I understand, monthly seems to feel better, but actually something that sits outside of monthly or outside of weekly is probably going to pick my attention a little bit more. If it's just that first of the month regular email, it's going to go in the spam filter. If it's the Friday afternoon regular email, it's going to go in the spam filter. It needs to stand out a little, so it needs to be done at a different time, and probably infrequently without a specific frequency is probably going to work best for me.
Oh, that's a bit controversial, isn't it? Infrequently, not planned so much. That's quite interesting.
You can plan in frequency.
Yeah, you can plan in frequency, but the idea that it might be different times, different. I think that's quite an interesting idea, actually. How about you, Kim? What's your thought on that?
I prefer monthly from a company that I'm interested in, but I'm not yet ready to or able to engage with them and purchase their services or products. One thing about frequency, once So the other day I clicked on a link in an email, and I was actually quite interested in what I saw, but happy to park it, you know, and actually I wasn't a decision maker in that topic, so I had to send it on to somebody else. And even now it's it might happen one day sort of thing. And of course that vendor doesn't know that and doesn't necessarily know I don't want to hear from them again. But I received 3 emails in the following 12 hours. And it was insane just because they knew I'd clicked on that link. And I actually had to reply and say, you have emailed me 3 more times in you know, please don't, that's over, it's too much. You're putting me off. And I worded it more nicely than that. But I basically had to say something like that. And anyway, they're still emailing me, so I might have to unsubscribe now. So it is tricky. But for me, if they had sent something else, you know, a few weeks or a month later, that would have felt about right for me. They didn't need to chase me. Well, that's how it feels anyway.
Yeah.
I'll just add post-event. That's the worst.
Oh, agreed. And you don't even know, you know, that they've got your details and all the companies then email you.
So what would you expect post-event?
Nothing. I will contact the companies that I'm interested in or I want to know more about.
Even when you become too busy?
Yes. If I'm too busy, then then you know, it's not a priority.
Okay. Andrew, is that the same for you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Kim that you click on an email. I mean, I've had this before. I've clicked on an email and then I've actually had a phone call the next day saying, Andrew, you opened an email from us yesterday. Really? I might have opened it. I might have clicked on a link, but you know, that there's overkill that sits around that. The event one is an interesting one because if you've scanned my details, but I've not made note of yours, then you are just a person we've seen at an event. I'll go back to you. I will have a need to go to you. The level of commitment is an interesting one, and I've had conversations with people about this in the past. Just by having my contact details doesn't mean that you're going to contact me, because I will hide your emails, and you know, I won't take your phone calls, and that's the way it works. I will go back to the people who I've felt that personal engagement with. So at an event, don't worry about just trying to get churn numbers and get, you know, 1,000 scans of ID cards. Much better will be to have the conversation with 50 people, and those 50 people all come back to you, you know, the next day or the next week or the next month. That's going to do you a lot better in the long run than just having the numbers of primary scans, whatever they happen to be.
Okay.
Goes back to John's comment about what's the metric you're measuring.
Yeah. And John, is there anything you would add here?
Let me unmute myself. So interesting comments about frequency of emails. So my opening stuff for me. I would say that the emails we send are predominantly content based and not commercially related. So hopefully that it kind of changes things a little bit. I mean, the post-event, I have to agree with the post-event comments. It is quite annoying, but I understand why companies do it, you know. But they should maybe listen to their delegates a bit better. There's surely better ways of maintaining that contact, because it is just spam, really, isn't it? So we send a weekly newsletter. We did send more than this, but we sacked them all off. We did send a daily forum roundup, which is way too much, and a weekly content roundup. But now we just send one email every Thursday, and it's a collection of the best content throughout the week with a short editor's note. It has a couple of ad banners in it, but it is mostly editorially focused. So I think that seems like a decent frequency to me, but we'll probably include a question in the survey this year about how people are finding it, you know, so we can kind of tweak and hone that side of things. Yeah, too much is just plainly annoying. And I think email marketing is a very valid form of communication, but it is legacy. And I think I don't know how much longer it's going to be around. And it is useful for certain things, but there's so many better ways of contacting people. And so, you know, for event coverage, for example, Ours tends to be kind of in the moment on Twitter, and that seems to work really well. But we try not to spam people too much with email, basically. The commercial emails we send on behalf of clients aren't with any regularity. So it could be once a month, it could be less than that. It depends, because email marketing is just, one advertising solution that some clients go for and some don't, So the only regular thing we have is our weekly newsletter, which isn't particularly onerous. There's a handful of links in there. But yeah, I'm taking it all on board.
Right, now we've hit 1 o'clock, and I'm hoping, it feels to me like we've covered quite a lot of ground, and there's been some, I'd like to just thank the panel for keeping an eye on the chat, and I'd like to thank everyone for sharing so much. Is there anything else that anyone needs an answer to? Because we could quickly sneak that in, and if we can't, then I'm sure we can answer that in the fullness of time. I mean, we've recorded this, and I will send everything out, a kind of roundup of what's been said. If there isn't anything, the only other thing that I would like to do, look, more questions, is just let us know whether this met your expectations. That would be, just let us know in chat, because I like to think that the panel has done a fantastic job. I think you have. So how well did this webinar meet your expectations? Just let us know in the chat quickly. And then I think we will draw it to a close.
And what Kim and I will be doing will be emailing out to everybody straight after this, just to find out exactly what you thought of it. Everybody who answers that email will be emailed again. Everybody who doesn't answer the email will be emailed twice.
Well, of course, now I'm under immense pressure to do the right thing next, right? So you can all put your spam filters on when you hear from me. What I will do, though, is no one's answering that question about whether it met expectations. A few people have said that it seems to have done the trick. So, yes, what I'd like to do finally is just thank you all for being here today. Thank you for putting up with my attempts at typing on the screen as we go. I thought I'd give that a go this time. I don't know if that's worked or not for you. But finally, I just would like to say thank you to our fantastic panel who are super busy. They hold down very big jobs in big organisations, and they've made themselves available today and for practice. And so Kim, John and Andrew, a huge thank you, because I'm not aware that we have this type of discussion very often. And I think it's just great to get it started, really, so that I'm hoping that what you get next will be vastly different and informed by some of this conversation. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
No problem.
And I think what I'm going to do is probably end it there. So it will dramatically, we will end, the session will just sort of turn off. So, much like we had the green room at the beginning, it's probably the red room at the end. Or I'll say goodbye now to everyone. And yeah.
Somebody's asked a question, the recording being available, because they missed the start of it, Martin.
Yes. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for keeping an eye on the chat better than myself. Yes, I'll record it. It's all been recorded. It will be sent to you. And also I'm going to distill everything. We put some stuff on the slides, but I'll put a document together just to pull everything together. And hopefully that'll be a good sort of aid memoir from today as well. So yeah.
There's an email that we should all definitely read.
Yes. I'm not sure how I send it to you now. I'm like a rabbit in the headlights. But thanks very much, everyone.